Welcome to the Creating with Beauty podcast, where God's love and beauty flow through our hearts and hands with peace and intention. Here you'll find honest conversations, inspiring stories, and gentle invitations to create with the beauty and wonder already in your life. Beauty is both a gift and an invitation, leading us down a sacred path with Jesus.
My whole intention is for everybody to live with eyes wide open, like to see what's right where you are. It's not necessarily about these specific flowers that are right in my backyard, but about the ones that are yours.
So how do you embrace your creativity with the demands of everyday life? You have a very full life.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of us do, but you have a very full, busy life with your business and family and everything like that. So how do you allocate some time just for you?
Well, creating and the gathering of ideas, materials, all of that has become part of who I am now. And so it is part of who I am and how I move through the world. So my eyes are always looking. I'm always paying attention. And I also, I know it is important. And so I do carve out time for that. I intentionally make time to be a maker, to spend time doing that. Sometimes it's really disjointed and disconnected. And by that, I just mean that there's seasons of my life where I've had small children. And even now, Rhett isn't at school every day. So when he's here, I do a little of this and then I do that and then I do a little bit, and so sometimes I have to break it up. Of course, I love, big blocks of creative time, but that doesn't always happen. But it is part of who I am, and it's important to me, and so I do make time for it.
That is such a good answer, a well thought out answer, because to take a moment to realize and say, this is how I am now, this is how I move through my life now. And so there's a before and an after there that you're referring to. And I think the intentionality of doing so is what changes us. It's it's that stop and that focus of, okay, Lord, what do you have for me here? And these moments of beauty and these things that you find. I mean, I can just imagine you out on the prairie finding, a new flower or something and getting so excited, getting giddy, right? To bring it back and use it in your art, right? Or just but you feel like it's like a candy kiss from God. You feel like it's something that was just for you in that moment, and something so simple can nurture and shape us into just such just creative people that move through life, just sharing beauty and sharing his love in the simplest of ways. And you do that so well. I love how you pointed that out, that this is who I am now and this is how I move through my life, because there can definitely be a stark contrast to before. Yeah. Right? Well, beforehand, right? And so
I would have answered that differently 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Than I do right now. And, 15 years ago when Erin was a toddler and when she was little, it was new. Where I am now and saying that this is how I move through my life, this is how I live, and this, it has become that because I've done it over and over again, and I've seen just the sweet fruits of it, really. But at first, there was a lot of, head talk, like, is this really worth doing? Just a lot of kind of inner critic and self-doubt, or like wasting time ideas, or just, a lot of questioning. And certainly there are times where I still have a form of that. but how, like, my confidence has grown out of repetition of this is good. Like, this is good for me. I get such amazing experiences with other people because I'm doing this,
Mhm.
um, because of the creating and sharing it, that, being on that side, it does make it easier. Um, but it was definitely something that felt very wonky and awkward and clunky and like, ugh,
Yeah.
lots of stuff out. But one of the cool things, and I don't know that this is necessarily in your question, but I think it's relevant. Erin, she was a toddler. As I was, buying those art supplies and starting to try these things out in practice and that, and I let her do it right along with me. Like,
Mhm.
she had a little table and it was covered in paint and marker and all of this and sometimes I would just set my stuff down and sometimes I would do it reluctantly, but then I would just let her do it too. And I would buy myself an art journal and I'd think, "Oh, I'm going to use this art journal." And then she'd be like, "Oh," and then she would, start to create in it and I'd end up just letting her have it. But the sweet thing is that that's also she's an amazingly talented artist today. She's such a skilled, talented young lady. And I'm so glad I let those seeds, I let them grow in her and just gave her a place to experiment with my grown-up art supplies. Uh,
Right.
and so, I was learning. Oh, and I still am. I don't think I
Right.
ever stop,
We always are learning.
but just
Yes.
kind of in those baby steps for myself, I let her into that process, and that's a really sweet, just sweet memory, and to see
Yes.
how she's grown from that. So yeah,
Very precious and very wise on your part as a mom to just say, okay, we're going to do this together
yeah,
versus, like, this is for me and like that's for you.
hmm
But
hmm
just to bring her alongside of you. What a great mom.
yeah.
Really. I know you're a great mom, but what a great
Oh, thanks.
mom just to,
Well, it's fun to
and
look back
yeah,
and to see.
and great memories. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you mentioned the inner critic. And so
hmm
I don't want to give a lot of time to the inner critic, but how
Right.
have you found a way to handle that inner critic?
hmm
Inner critic being the thing that tells us that we're not good enough.
Oh
Inner
yeah.
critic being the thing that says, who are you to think you can make that? And, whatever, this is no
Yep.
good, or like that
I'm
kind of
quite
stuff.
familiar with that voice.
Me too.
Quite familiar. Um, yes. And I can think I've kicked that bugger out of here.
Mm,
And then, boop, it'll sneak back in. But how I have learned to deal with that, there's multiple ways. One of the big ways is really getting secure in my identity in Christ, like in my
amen.
and
Yeah.
just really secure in, knowing and believing um, who I am in Christ, and like just getting super rooted in that, and not just knowing the words, but like really letting it settle into me, and that's a process too.
Right.
It's a total process too.
An
Uh,
ongoing process for our entire
yeah,
lives. Yes.
yeah. So that's a big part of it. Um, Time is helpful too. Um, just time and walking out and trusting. Um, I would say, trust faith in the Lord, but and trusting in the process of letting things unfold. Um, because I've seen over and over again, generally when my inner critic is super, super active, and it's when I'm struggling with something, and and then I will get on the other side of it and just um, have lots of, what do I want to say, clarity on the other side.
Mhm.
And having that happen over and over again also is helpful, I would say, to trust that process. Um, and trusting that, okay, when things are new, it feels awkward. It doesn't feel comfortable. And that inner critic really shows up when things are new, when you're trying something that you've never done before. Um, and just realizing first time is tough, and that's
Yeah.
okay. It feels awkward and scary to everybody, not just me. And just knowing that that's a normal part of being human. And just, giving myself grace. Um, so,
That's a good point too, and it's part of being human. If you look at it in the creativity art world, there's this inner critic, right?
sure.
And it can kind of, keep us from doing what God has for us to do. But even if we step outside of the creativity art world, and you said it's just part of being human,
Hmm.
that shows up in anything we do,
Absolutely.
honestly. I mean, if we can
Yes.
identify it
Yeah.
and then move through that and be like, okay, I want to, like you just said, go to the other side of this, and you learn from those experiences. I have never correlated the two, so thank you. Like, they've been like these separate compartments in my
Mhm.
mind, right? But they're actually the same thing. It's the same exact thing. So if you can move through life, through a difficult situation or whatever, and then get on the other side of it and learn from it, you can also do it through creativity and creating.
Yes.
And honestly, creativity can be a lot more fun. It can
Indeed.
actually be therapy for us. So,
For sure. For sure.
yes, right. So, great answer. Thank you for that. So, what opened your eyes to beauty and creation as one of God's love languages? I say
Mm.
that. I mean, that's just
Mhm.
my thought on how, what God does. And so, was there a time that opened your eyes to the beauty and creation? As I think we kind of answered that maybe, but is there anything you want to share?
Well, I have lots of stories, and so more than we have time for today.
Right. I love your
But
stories.
but I do have a story where that I feel like really connected. And I already shared about the caterpillar and the butterfly and all of that.
Right.
I mean, that was definitely one because that was layered in across different areas of my life. And definitely my faith came big into that, like Romans 12:2, and about, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You know, um, presenting our body as a living sacrifice, like crawling my little caterpillar body up, on the altar and, letting him transform my life. Um, so there was that one, but there was also just I believe that the Lord definitely speaks to me in different aspects of nature in ways that when it happens, I know without a doubt that was a sweet message that was for me.
Mm.
And one of those examples, and this definitely had an influence on my art. I did a lot of creating with birds when I first started, and I still use feathers. And I did a whole online class, consider consider birds, about um, trading our anxiety for peace of mind that comes from God. Um, and that really came out of a little prayer that happened when I was going through all of that transition I referred to earlier. Um, I had found that I was starting to pay attention to birds. And when I was a little girl, my grandma Marge lived right next door to us, and she had this great bird feeder in front of her dining room window. And so she would teach me their names. And, oh, look,
Mm.
this is a black-capped chickadee. This is American goldfinch. This is a rufous-sided towhee, or like just all of these names, and evening grosbeak. And so I learned that language of naming the birds when I was just a little girl. And I just thought everybody knew the names of the birds. And there's this cute story that my mom always would tell about my cousin who's a year older than me, and he we were together, and I don't know, looked out the window and I said, "Hey, Troy, there's a chickadee." And he goes, "Ah, no, Jody, that's a bird." And he's like, "Are you kidding me? That's a bird." And I just tell that story because my grandma helped me to see that each bird was unique and special and had its own coloring, its own song, and um, deserved to be known by its name. Well, in that season, I remember um, I called my mom and I asked her if she would see if she had my grandma's photo album of bird pictures that she had taken of birds on her feeder. And she said, "Yeah, I've got it, and um, you can have it. I'll just give it to you." And I remember praying that spring, um, that the Lord would just send me some birds that I hadn't seen since I was a little girl. And it was three birds. I prayed for just to be able to see a Baltimore Oriole and a rose-breasted grosbeak
Mm.
and a lazuli bunting. Have I told you this story, Melanie?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay. Um, and so I had prayed that prayer, and that was well before I called my mom about the photo album. While I was on the phone with my mom, I looked out the window, and in the tree in my yard was a rose-breasted grosbeak.
Goodness.
And I was just like, "Oh my goodness!" Oh, and I'm freaking out, and I'm standing on a chair, and I'm trying to take a picture of it, and Tom is like, I don't know, like 10 years old, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, you're so funny," freaking out over this bird. And I'm like, "Oh, but this is like, I prayed for this bird, and here it is, and I haven't seen one since I was a little girl." And I was so excited, so I take this picture, and she's like, "Okay, well, you can have the book. I'll call you later. We'll talk later." So I'm just so giddy, excited. And so then I just go for a walk, what I do, and I'm walking and on my way back to the house, and my mother and father-in-law live close to us, and she had bird feeders in her yard, and I look at her bird feeder, and on the bird feeder that same morning, there's a Baltimore Oriole.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, "Oh, Lord, you are so good. I'm so excited about that." And I'm like, two of these birds in one day. And I was just like, "Oh, it's awesome." Um, that afternoon, I'm in my dining room and whatever, and I have a bird feeder out in my yard too. And I just look out, and there on my bird feeder is a lazuli bunting. They're blue, gorgeous blue head, and they've got like a orange on their breast and white. And I mean, like,
Wow.
okay, okay, Lord, like, you care about me that much? Like, you
Right.
care about my heart that specifically, that I would get to see like all three of these the same day? Yeah. And it's good for me to tell that story again and again because I need to remember that
Hmm.
story. And I tell that story because it has lots of layers, and I do, and I've shared it in different contexts, and sometimes when I tell it, I think people are not going to believe me, or they're going to be like, oh, really, that's just, that's coincidence, and, that's migration season, whatever. But every time I tell it, it reminds me, no, that just doesn't happen.
Right.
Um, and, you know, there's the story of Jesus meeting the Samaritan woman at the well. And what I connect that story and my bird story is that she ran back to the village and told people, here's a man who knows everything about me. I think he's the savior. I think he's the Messiah, and she runs back and she's telling people because she's so excited. And she says, I met a man who knows everything about me. Well, that story. The Lord knows and knew the tenderness and the sweetness of that connection to me personally.
Hmm.
And so me telling that story is saying, oh, Lord knows me. Like, he
Yes.
knows me. And the cool thing about that connection is that with the Samaritan woman, the people in the town, then they invited Jesus to stay, and they listened to him for 3 days. And so because she said, he knows me, come see, um, they invited him to stay. And then they said to the woman, we no longer believe just because of what you said, but now we have heard him for ourselves, and we know that this man really is the Savior of the world. So when we have those opportunities to tell those stories about how the Lord knows us, it's an invitation for other people to hear him for themselves and know.
Right. Right.
And so,
And that he cares about the
yeah,
smallest of details, a bird
right.
on a bird feeder, right? Like
Yes.
just
Yes.
the tiniest of details.
Yeah.
But that is where he reveals his love for us.
His love for us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, um, that has been part of what I do. Like part of my sharing is that when I create art, and they're not all that dramatic, as if three birds showing up at the same time,
Right.
you know. Um, and so it's not every day is like that, and everything is about, something that specific. Now, there have been other situations um, that are similar, of him showing me that he knows, and we can tell those stories another day.
But I want to
But
interject this here, though, because you're open to receive, you're open to see, and you're seeking
mhm,
him in any way that you
yeah,
possibly can, right?
yeah,
And so that is important too, because
yeah,
if we're open to seeing, he's going to reveal.
yes,
As
yeah,
seek and you will find. Yes.
exactly. And so how that makes its way into my art is that seeing and being open to seeing, like having my eyes wide open. Take this.
Hmm.
These little flowers are what come out in May, and I see them, and if I put them in art, my whole intention is for everybody to live with eyes wide open, like
Hmm.
to see what's right where you are. It's not necessarily about these specific flowers that are right in my backyard, but about the ones
Right.
that are in yours. That you see the cosmos and the lavender, and
Hmm.
I just love that. I love people seeing what's right where they are. Um, and so that's how it has, I feel like, expanded. And sometimes it's very, very simple.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's dramatic and exciting, but
Right.
it matters.
Absolutely. And also too that you were working on, well, you were contemplating creating that class at
Hmm.
that time, right? And so then to have like these three birds show up in the same day, that just like lit a fire in you that
Hmm.
you needed to do this. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't like, oh, well, no, I need to do
Yeah.
this. Like that was another way of
Yeah.
God showing you, you need to do this. Yes.
Yeah. And I would say when I step out in faith, that he provides more. He provides
Good to
more
know. Yeah.
stories, more ideas, more. So when I decided to do Consider Birds, he provided layers of new bird stories,
Yeah.
different ones, um, still sweet,
Right.
still relevant.
Yes.
And so that is something that I have learned too, is that when I step out in faith, um, the like there's an abundance. There's not a lack. Like there will be more
Yeah.
ideas. There will be more, you know, sweet times that God shows me and speaks to my heart and gives me something to share with other people. And so trusting that, stepping out, there will be more.
Hmm. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
And I totally appreciate it. I'm so excited. I can't wait to share and get this out with the world and let everybody hear your beautiful stories and testimonies. It's going to be wonderful. And also, to where can people find you?
Yeah. So you can certainly find me on Instagram at jodine.s, Jodene.s. That would be my art page.
Okay.
Also, my website is whiteowlwings.com.
Okay.
White
And I will put that in the
whiteowlwings.com.
description as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Find me there. I do have a Facebook artist page, but everything that I put on Instagram, you'll find, on Facebook too. But those are those two places. And then also, I do have Etsy. I have an Etsy site, and that is if you go on Etsy and you look for my name, and I can send you the exact link, but
right. I'll
Etsy is
put that.
Jodine Shaw. Um, but if you follow me on Instagram, also, I have Etsy. I don't list everything I have available on Etsy. So a lot of people just follow my Instagram and then they're like, "Oh my goodness, I love that. Do you have that available?" And then we just end up, coordinating and I make one for them or whatever. So you don't have to, wait for something to appear on my Etsy site to reach out to me and, we can, if you see something that you like, let's talk.
Absolutely. And also, like I had mentioned, following Jodi on social media is a treat. She
Aw,
shares just the
thanks.
simplest, sweetest things of daily life that are beautiful and inspiring and encouraging. And so, even if you're not in the market to buy art, but I hope that
Yeah,
you do buy her art, go follow her on social media because it's really, I love your posts. They make my day. So
thanks.
when you pop in a heart rock, or I get great joy out of seeing Rhett and all of his
Mhm.
scientific and creative
Oh yeah.
adventures.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got
So,
a got
yeah,
a curious mind also. So,
absolutely.
but yeah, and anything, that I have coming up, I share through social media. So,
Right.
like any events where I'm gonna take my art or offer a class online or in person. You can find that on my social medias and my website too.
Awesome. All right,
Yeah.
Jodi. Thank you
Okay.
so much for being
Yes.
here.
Good.
And I will talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Melanie. This was lovely.
It
Thanks.
was lovely. Thank you. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.